Stream is
Hey,
live.
buddy. We are live. How you doing?
It's a wonderful day in paradise, man.
It's
Is
living the dream, huh?
yeah, you just reminded me I have 2 weeks until Rendezvous, and my list is like it continually grows and then shrinks and then grows. And today it went.
Yep. It
So
happens that way.
been a long day.
Joey gives me such a hard time because, like, the night before is like a scramble. It's like I don't have any idea that I'm going somewhere. So,
Yeah.
hey, everyone. Good evening. I have a little bit different format this evening. Joey is not on the show this evening, but you guys are stuck with Tone from Bats Off Road, and I have Jason Landon on here from Ozark 4x4. We are going to be talking about him and Ozark 4x4 and the upcoming Rendezvous in the Ozarks here in 2 weeks from today. But
You
so
keep saying
anyway.
that.
Thanks for watching, and let's get into it. All right. Jason, so we got a lot coming up here in the next couple of weeks to get done, right? There's
You keep saying this.
yeah. Yeah. So tell me about yourself, Jason. Who are you? Like tell us about who you are and what you got going on.
Oh man. I hate talking about myself, just like we all
Yeah,
hate writing our own bios and everything.
I know.
You want to maintain like some form of humbleness, but also you got to advertise the goods, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. So let's go in the Wayback Machine here.
Okay.
Wayback Machine, grew up off-roading. First vehicle I learned to drive was like well, honestly, it's a farm truck, old Chevy manual, and we drive it on the farm, and I'd drive around in circles while they loaded square bells. If you ever meet my grandfather, he's got a lovely story about that he tells.
Yeah.
Migrated from
I've got
that.
I've got a similar situation, except mine was a Ford. That's the only difference. I got to drive the old farm truck around. That's where I learned. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I would do great until a good song came on the radio. And I know I don't look like I dance, but I guess in my younger years, I'm quite the performer.
Yeah.
You'd have to come up and straighten the wheel, and then, it'd be okay for a few minutes, and then I'd be off again. But I migrated from that into a 1952 M38, old Willie's M38. My great grandfather bought it, didn't bring it over, bought it sometime after the Korean War, I guess. And it has been painted like, I don't know how many different colors. Unfortunately, I pulled it apart to do kind of a light restoration, and part of it burned up in a barn fire we had in 2020. Yeah, that's exactly what I expected from Rick England. Anyway, like 2021-ish.
Hey, Rick.
So then first actual off-road vehicle I ever owned was a K5 Blazer.
Oh, nice.
Rick will like. That's probably the only vehicle I ever regret selling to be frank.
Really?
Yeah. And I regret selling it because its value now was like 10 times what I sold it for then.
Yeah.
More than actually, I don't know. If I still owned it, I'd probably still be driving it.
There was a really cool K5 that was driving. I just got like a brief glimpse of it at Overland of America.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wonder if it was Rick's. I don't know if he, because I'm looking forward to seeing his. I'm hoping he has it at Rendezvous here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I hope it'll be there too. I've seen it a couple of times.
Yeah.
I love the platform, and you wouldn't think that they would be very good off-road, but if you pull like a fender-to-fender measurement, they're actually similar width to a JK, which kind of blows people's mind because you think it's a full-size Chevy, but the reality is it's very similar width to a JK if you go fender-to-fender. Like,
you're right. That's blowing my mind. I wouldn't have thought that, but yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I saw a picture today where someone had like a slider in the rear of one with a bunch of pack outs on it. Naturally, I shared it with Rick, and He's like, that looks great.
Yeah, he says there's
Apparently
another
there's
awesome
another
cafe.
awesome one coming. Yeah, I was just
Right.
waiting for his reply there.
Right.
But I moved from that into Toyota mini trucks. Built a Truggy. Went to college at the University of Arkansas. Ended up driving the Truggy around campus a lot.
Yeah.
Without the doors on it or anything like that. Ended up buying my first Tacoma out of Jupiter, Florida, off of Totora, the
Okay.
Over group.
Yeah.
So I found it online, messaged the guy. He had it for a very fair price. And I was like, hey, man, I'm in college. Like, how about I'll give you your asking price minus the plane tickets for my then girlfriend, now wife, and I. He's like, yeah, that sounds good. So I flew down there, like, had a cashier's check, really no idea what I was getting into. And the guy started like throwing stuff in the back. He's like, here's another set of wheels. Here's an old winch I have. And then after some visiting, he's like, hey, man, I like you. Here you go. Here's $2,500 back. I was like, wow. So then we drive about halfway home, come out the next morning, and the truck is just oil covered from front to back underneath. And check it, no oil on the dipstick. I don't know how many gallons of oil I used on the way home, but the rear main was just pouring. And the guy had shoved a bunch of cardboard between the bell housing and the back of the engine to keep it from dripping during the sell. So he had a guilty conscience.
Yeah.
But that truck is what really turned me into the Overland kind of world.
Yeah.
I met a dude named Tim Mills. Shout out Tim Mills if you're still out there in the world. And he kept saying, hey, man, you need to check out Central Overland Travels. And that's a throwback right there. And at the time I was guiding mountain biking trips, canoe trips, sea kayaking trips, backpacking trips with the University of Arkansas's recreation program.
Oh, nice.
And like, I loved every second of it. And that like connection between camping and off-roading had never been made very clear to my brain until then. And I jumped right into that. I had that background in the guiding already. So I went and talked to Wes Craiglow, and we ended up he had me run some trips for him. Had some disagreement, probably more my fault than anything. I was 21 years old, and you know how you are when you're 21. You don't really think about
yes, sir.
very much.
Yes, sir.
That turned into some buddies and I starting the Overland Guild, which is another throwback.
Yep.
Right. And we ran the Overland Guild for a little while. Trips, donation-based stuff. Permitting was always a pain to get, right? And that turned into me running the Overland Challenge series. And I want to make it very clear, I say me, the volunteers made that event happen. I was just the orchestrator of them. They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys turned into the internet. Well, Randy always competed, but Rick, Nathan, Tony, Dudley, those four guys right there really helped run that event. And I got another buddy named Cole that comes and helps run my booth for Ozark 4x4. But at some point in all this, the permitting side of it, the insurance side of it, it just got too cost inefficient, right?
Yeah.
No one was willing to insure an off-road event. No one was willing to permit an off-road event unless you ran it essentially as a nonprofit and then just relied on some donations and some other stuff to help offset the cost. And it just wasn't making financial sense.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, I was teaching high school at the time. I worked for Crowder College, which is in Southwest Missouri.
Yeah.
They ran an at-risk program, and I would work with at-risk 10, 11, and 12th graders. And yeah, I doubt he remembers anything below 28. But I ran that. I was running a really cool at-risk program, but I had the summers off, and I was doing I went to Overland Expo in 2012 or 13, and the next event they called me and they're like, hey, we want to bring you on as a trainer for the outdoor stuff, not for the off-road stuff. And then I worked, kind of alongside some of these the list of trainers that I owe my bunny buggy. That would
bunny buggy, huh?
Yeah.
That sounds interesting, Jarrett. You're going to have to give us some more info.
Yeah. But I got brought into this Overland, this off-road side of this, by these Camel Trophy guys that were running the training areas at Overland Expo, and kind of those connections there eventually steamrolled. I wasn't ever brave enough until recently to make that jump into doing this as, my main source of income. I was always still teaching. I taught at Crowder. COVID ended up kind of interrupting that program. I was working in grants, politics stuff. So then I took a teaching job in Gravette, Arkansas, as the FFA advisor. And that was, I have a background in ag. I grew up on a farm. My graduate degree is in adult and ag education, right? So
yeah,
I've got a strong background there. And just, I hate to say it, but like, we're in this post-COVIDian society, and the politics of education, they ran me off. And I'm like, all right, what do I love doing? I love doing this. How do I make it work? And so while I'd been like moonlighting during the summers as a trainer for Overland Expo or Cam Mobility or whoever really needed the help, 7P was a big one for a while. I stepped out and then kind of went to market, so to speak. And since then I've ran, I don't do a very good job. I was telling you, I'm not very good at stories, right? I don't take a lot of photos. I'm more of a doer than a teller.
Yeah.
But I've ran, I can't, like I said, I was trying to add it together, and I bet I have at least 1,000 hours in other people's vehicles.
Yeah.
In this kind of mentality, probably 1,500 in my personal one, and then maybe another 500 in like Jeep. I helped with the JK launch when they did their Hard Rock Rubicon edition. I ran an OEM with them. General Tire, when they launched the ATX, the current like all-terrain grabber, when they launched the X3, I was working with them. Did a little bit on the KM3, I learned all the reasons I was lucky I didn't die as a youth.
That's a very true statement, Rick. Farmer personalities tend to be problem solvers. I'd agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And like, you talk to a farmer and you're like, hey, you shouldn't yank on that chain like that, right? That's not made for kinetic.
Yeah.
I was doing that when I was like 11 years old, right? And we got a tractor stuck and we didn't want anyone to know. So brother and I would go out there and yank it out with a chain. But we're just lucky we didn't cause any like lasting damage to something.
Yeah.
Farming is like a super dangerous occupation.
Right. You ever yank on something like in reverse with a tractor?
Like the tractor in reverse?
Yeah. So it just kind of brought up something that I saw a video a while back. Somebody broke a tractor right in half.
Yeah.
Because they put so much pressure on it where it separates right underneath where the shifter is, like between your, like under your feet.
Yeah, you have
this dangerous stuff.
Tractors are like two-piece, right? Like the engine bolts to the transmission, the transaxle, and then that's all built into the rear axle and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've never broken one in half. One of the scariest incidents I've ever had with a high lift jack was on a farm tractor. And that's like not one of my favorite tools in the world. And I could demonstrate why.
Yeah.
If you ever want to see why. But that was a lot of these skills from farming that I've been, I guess absorbed, because it's how my grandpa did it. My great grandpa did it. Not saying they did it right. And I don't ever tell that to them, but those skills kind of transitioned really well over into the off-road industry. A lot of the same recovery. I'm using air quotes here because farmers do what they need to do to get the project done. Right? And they don't always have the right equipment. So you make great problem solvers, and you use what you have. It's a whole.
You use what you have. That's right.
Gray area of recovery training is what I call that. Steering wheel broke in your hand, huh?
Broke my hand. I turned left, but the steering wheel went right. Yeah. That wouldn't be good. That's no good.
I had a 82.
Hopefully the brakes were good.
Yeah, that thumb in the wheel thing. A lot of people don't think about it much because modern vehicles with power steering. I had an 82 Toyota mini truck, manual steering, and like 100 yards into the first time I ever had it in 4-low, the thumbs made sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
It don't take long. It don't take long to figure out, if you get lucky enough to not really break one, but you stress one, then you get your thumbs on the outside.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Outside of the wheel.
That's right.
Yeah, that all of that essentially turned into me looking at, here's what I've done, right? I'm a MPTC, which is a City and Guilds thing. It's a Europe, UK thing. I'm certified as a level 2 off-road driving and recovery guy through them. I've got some BC Forest Safe stuff. I went all these routes for international certifications, kind of
nice.
Pre-International Four-Wheel Drive Trainer Association. And that's a tangent I could get on later. Because I went those international routes, right? None of that really, like you tell somebody, you tell your neighbor, oh yeah, I went and did this. They have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
But when you start working with OEMs, like Lexus or Toyota or Jeep, Chrysler, whatever, Stellantis, they start recognizing some of that, right? And that kind of worked out. And really, I didn't have a set path on where I needed to go and what I needed to have. So it was always like, hey, Andy, or Andy Dacey, one of the guys that kind of brought me up in the industry. What do you recommend? Or what do you guys do here? Jim West, shout out Jim West. I owe him a lot because he's been kind of the mentor for me, kind of navigating where I need to be, who I need to talk to. He's gotten me some great work in the past. And so we have a pretty tight circle. That's how Raul's coming in to help.
Okay.
And we work a lot together with the military training stuff.
Gotcha. So you've got a pretty good crew there with you then that helps you out and stuff at Ozark 4x4. Right?
Yeah. So I don't claim to employ them solely, right? That's the big thing. So essentially what I have and what I utilize, if I'm doing something locally, like just a tour and there's no training involved, I hit up Rick England. I hit up some of these local guys that I've been in the woods with. I would consider them my local experts, right? Because they put as many miles in the Ozarks as anyone.
Yeah.
If I'm doing some kind of more sophisticated training, if I go out and I'm doing something subcontracting wise, Jim West came to a rendezvous when it was at Birds a couple of years ago. But what we end up doing is like Raul, right? He's got the Central America market. And so that's kind of an international tie for me. But Jim had a connection with the Rebel Club and, the Rebel vans, and they wanted to do something on the Eclipse. Well, the Eclipse, the totality was coming right over Arkansas. So he kind of swatted it over to me. If I have work that needs to happen in Arizona, I swat it back to him, and we run it as, it was Ozark. Hey, little lady, Ozark 4x4.
Okay.
Very excited topper.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons I hate traveling, right?
Yes. Yeah, I get that.
As much as I can.
I get that.
So we just kind of bounce back and forth. I got on with Lexus as a pro driver through another connection I made in the Overland Expo in the military training world. And he's like, hey, I have a schedule conflict. You interested? Well, yeah, I'm interested. Like, he doesn't want to go be a pro
I'm going to
driver.
say no. I'm going to say
I don't
no.
want to.
Yeah.
Who's going to say no to that?
Right.
And then you go in and you it takes a very good personality to fit in at that level. But really, if I was looking at my younger self, I'd be like, just stop questioning your capabilities and just launch
Mhm.
yourself into it, right? Because
Yeah.
I could have been doing this in 2016, easy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right.
And I'm more mature now. I'm definitely a lot more level-headed,
Yeah.
and that
Well, it's what
helps.
happens when you get older.
Yeah,
I'm not as that's how we said, I'm not as level-headed and mature as my co-host Joey. He's my I like to throw him under the bus because he's a little bit older than me. But anyway, but yeah, so that's cool. That's good stuff, man. That's
yeah,
sort of gives us an idea of your training, your skill level, and what you're going to be teaching,
yeah. I'd
right?
say what kind of launched me, what gave me the confidence uh, in the industry, right? Like a guy named Ken Cameron runs Cam Mobility. He contracts for the military, and we train tier 1 groups, and then the FBI, DEA, CIA. There's a lot of things in there that I kind of like have to not say,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
But he called me. I don't even remember. He called me in 2016. He's like, "Hey, I want you to come work for me. I'll guarantee, like, this is what we're looking at contract wise." And I was like, "Man, I just can't. Like, the money sounds great, but I don't know that I can make that commitment without like a guarantee, because it's all contract stuff."
mm-hmm.
Uh, and then one summer, he's like, "Hey, offers here," and I went back and I was like, "Okay, I can do this, and I can do this pretty well." And then it started getting into, thank you, Rick, uh, like expanding my knowledge, right? Like I had a
Yeah,
great set of fundamentals. I could go and the fundamentals I could work with anyone on. But then it got into like, well, how are you in a manual? Can you instruct in a manual? I've driven manuals my whole life, but can I? And the answer was kind of. And now the
okay,
answer is very well, right?
yeah,
And it
right,
really gave me that, like, manual instruction is a super rare thing to do now, because manuals in themselves are not as common as they were 10, 15, 20 years ago.
right,
Uh, but some of those little niche instruction areas, can you run a pendulum? Can you do this? And then right. And I want to preface, I'm a civilian all the way. I'm just, and it's going to sound not humble, and I hate sounding like I'm bragging, but I'm pretty good at this, right? So they keep bringing me back and bringing me back. Then they just throw you in some of these random military vehicles. And I've like, there's one, General Dynamics 1.1, if you want to pull it up. It's like center drive, 3 across, 3 in the back. It's kind of the Air Force's answer to the issues the Humvee showed.
Ooh,
Super fast, right? And they're like, "Hey, we need you to come out and run a training on this. Here is a manual that's like in a 5-inch 3-ring binder. Memorize it." And so that's a whole nother segment of the instruction side that I hadn't had any exposure to, and I love it.
dude, that thing looks awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. Uh, and
Oh,
not only is it cool, I've had to work on them because it's a government product, right? But they're they're like an air over hydraulic, right? So they've got a super swank coilover suspension on them, but it's air adjustable for height. The 4-wheel drive system, to go into low range, is ran by an air compressor. The comm system is ran by a 24 volt. It's 24 volt system. Lights, engine, transmission are all on a separate 12 volt system. And so you've got like a little, it's like, I don't know, 2 liter maybe, turbo diesel, rear engined, into a transaxle with a really weird 4-wheel drive setup down the center. But the engine has its own little 12 volt alternator. And then it's got this like faux bracket pulley where like a mini CV axle bolts onto this pulley and goes to the back into this, essentially, we're going to say, protected chamber, right? Where a 24 volt generator sits, and it's driven by the CV axle. but that pulley that CV hangs off of isn't like dual row. It's not a dual row ball bearing. It's a single row ball bearing, and it's constantly under tension. You get about 60 hours on them, and those pulleys just slowly work out until they're not pulleys anymore.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, right, the 24-volt side of that, which is the compressors, the comms, the air conditioning, that stuff just doesn't work anymore. And so what you have to do is like pull up another one beside it and load all the air tanks off that compressor, and then you can go another so many miles before you're back to riding on your low rider. You lose your 4-wheel drive system. You shut it off, it comes out of 4-wheel drive.
That sort of explains the variety of pictures here. I'm looking at this vehicle, and there's the suspension heights look like they're different on many of them.
Yeah,
and depending on how they're equipped,
so they've got a couple of different configurations. We've ran. I haven't ran anything armored yet, and that's a whole nother thing. Like when they're up armored, they're like 13,500 pounds, and they have a little bitty 12,000 pound winch to deal with that, right? So it's definitely not a sufficient winch when they're up armored. When we got them in to begin with, they were running a D-rated KO2 on them, 37, 1250, 17 KO2 D-rated, and we were going through tires like crazy. And so that was like, they sent out a guy, can't say names or anything, and I got another side story with him that's pretty cool. But he's like, what's the issue? And we're like, okay, well, A, it's a BFG, so it's really like 34 inches tall. It's not actually 37 inches tall.
Right.
And B, it's a D-rated 8-ply tire on a vehicle that weighs like you're pushing your GVW like right off the bat. Then you throw, like it can fit 5 dudes in cabin, and you can run a dude in the turret as well. So 6 dudes, they're probably pushing 300 pounds when they're kitted out. There's a lot of weight here.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that you're not accounting for. So the next time they came through with 37, 1350, 17 Toyo mud terrains. And we hadn't had a tire issue since, but now we're breaking axle shafts.
You just transferring one problem from one to one place to another.
Yeah, and we run into that bearing failure a lot. But when you break it doesn't have diff locks front and rear, right? It's open. It's got a bit of a traction control system that's pretty good. But what'll end up happening is it's always a rear stub shaft, because you get on some of the hills out in Utah, slick rock stuff, and these guys are pretty new to this, right? And so they get a little whiskey throttle on accident. They get a little too heavy on the brake on accident. Weight transitions to the rear. You snap a stub shaft. Well, it'll still drive around in front wheel drive, right?
Right.
And that's kind of their designed failure point, right? Is that stub shaft instead of something actually in the transaxle or in the hub. The problem is that these are so new to the market, it takes a really long time for a unit to order in spares. And so, like, we did a training with a group out of, can't say that. We did a training with a group, and they ended up bringing 2 of their mechanics on because they were like, you guys tell us we have all these issues. So they brought 4 of those .1s, and they'd actually pulled all the stub shafts and all the spares out of 2 others they had because they couldn't get the parts in time for the training.
Oh, wow.
And then it was hilarious because we ended up breaking that bearing I was talking about, a couple of failures there. And we don't let mechanics touch the vehicles. Like, the unit needs to learn how to maintain this and do the field repairs and have that farm mentality where you do everything you can to continue, right?
Yeah, so like you're going to be welding with a battery or something.
Yeah, we do that.
I know. I saw that on your website, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" I've seen it, on YouTube.
Yeah,
but I'm like, yeah, that's
Rendezvous for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to see that. I want to learn how to do that.
And that's one thing when I'm doing that contracting with Cam, we do teach that. That's typically a night 1 or a night 2. And Raul right now is running a military. He's training a military group right now. I can't say which. I I touched base this morning, and kind of the saying we have when we're out on, and a guy named Webb Arnold gave me this one. The only thing we can control is our start time. And so we start at 8 no matter what. What happens after that, we have no control over. So I haven't heard from Raul in several hours because we were going to end up at our normal winter camp, which it's not really winter yet, but that's what we call that camp. And there's good 5G there. So I thought we'd see him, but I'm going to guess.
Well, there's still time. If he makes it, we'll bring him on and talk to him. Yeah. That's fine. It's all good.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in mill vehicles, client vehicles, manuals. Like I have a ton of seat time. And
So what you're saying is you're kind of qualified to teach this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say that.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So, we'll fast forward here to your involvement with Randy and Rick and all the guys at Natural State Overland. You've kind of paired up with them to do some of this training, right? And
yeah. So Randy brought me on when I was actually working for 7P, and then again, I've transitioned into I am doing this on my own. So last year was kind of the first year Ozark 4x4 took over the training area in essence of itself, right? The year before we ran it with Jim. I have a ton of seat time with the company, right? As in Ozark 4x4. I have the prior knowledge, the relationships with Randy. They see some of these photos where I'm having to white out people's faces and, Jane Doe or whatever for names that I share kind of in my inner circle that I can't go public with, right? So they see all this when I'm out on trails, and they know the history. Obviously, that relationship, I've known Randy since probably 2010, so quite a long time before NSO was a thing. He's kind of one of the reasons that I pursued. I'll answer that in a second, Joey.
Okay.
Yeah. I pursued it pretty heavily. He's one of the reasons that I pursued the validation, right, so to speak. Like, we know you're good at this, but the world doesn't. So how do you show the world that you're good at this? And like I said earlier, I worked really hard to try and get that validation. Joey, the answer is it depends on who's around. Right? So I am a fan of traction boards for a couple of reasons. And I'm also not sure I've ever used them in the Ozarks effectively. I'll use that word, effectively. So out in the snow, in the sand, like those traction boards can be super helpful, but not by themselves typically. A lot of people think it's like the answer. One of the things we like to do with them, especially, so you're out on the dunes for the day, right? And you'll feel it typically, depending on the time of the year, 9, 10, maybe even as late as 11 in the winter. What happens is it gets really humid for like 30 minutes, right? And all that moisture that's been in the sand disappears. And then you just have the worst possible traction scenario ever. When we're in those kinds of scenarios, we'll use traction boards. Like if we're doing a kinetic recovery, we'll actually pre-stage them and we'll recover that vehicle onto the traction boards. Sometimes if we're not getting enough traction with the pulling vehicle, what happens there is we'll build a nice runway out of traction boards. Typically, I run, I've got 6 on the Oz Taco, 2 max tracks, 2 action tracks, and 2 sand ladders. And the sand ladders are aluminum sheets that have a couple of holes punched in them. The reason I kind of run that combo is, A, it's a vehicle made to train, right? It's made to have clients out and see the differences. Come play with my stuff because my wife may not like it, but I have a lot of money invested in my stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the industry. So come play with it before you make a choice there. Let's talk about it. Let's look at the effectiveness. If you're going to spend cheap money, and I don't I'm not trying to offend anyone here. I'll be honest. The issue with the low end traction boards is they break in half. And I've seen some that have been abused to no end, but I've also seen a brand new pair come off the top of a, I'm not going to say vehicle name, Jeep. And immediately, as soon as we loaded them down, like just drove the vehicle out onto them, we were winching. And, oh, man, Joey's full of good questions here. You're going to have to come take a class.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you.
We're going to have to come see you at Rendezvous. I mean, we knew you were there last year, but we hardly ever, it was tough to get out because, we were just visiting and talking, but I definitely want to come see the welding, and apparently Joey needs to come see anyway, go ahead.
So high lift versus bottle or factory. No good answer here. I have a lot of issues with high lifts for the beginner, because they are a very, very difficult tool to master, and they have a very high threshold of pain if you do not do it well.
Yeah.
That said, the high lift comes in very useful. A lot of people want to fixate on, like, how do you recover your vehicle with a high lift? That is so labor intensive. Effectively, if you're at that point, you're going to have a lot of work cut out for you. Ton of work cut out for you. The thing that I like about high lifts is they're so versatile. Okay, case in point, we had a snap ring break on the back of a first gen Tacoma axle shaft. And so if you've ever seen those, they're not like you think about the old AMC 20 where the snap ring's actually in the diff. The snap ring holds essentially a bearing retainer and an ABS ring and everything else on it. It's a really robust snap ring, but we broke one. So we took 2 high lift handles, bolted them together in the middle, ratchet strapped it to the slider, and then it was super long, and we ratchet strapped it back to the other side of the vehicle. We ruined the rear tire, but we drove the vehicle out. And we used 2 high lift handles to hold that axle shaft in place.
Oh, wow.
Right? We ruined the tire.
That's crazy.
But that was the only way to get out, because nobody carries that specific snap ring. I mean, that's not a spare that most people carry. Effectively, and the other issue is you have to have a press to really, it's a very specific setup when you change them. Had to change them recently. You've got to have a special service tool and some other stuff. So that effectively was our solution.
Nice.
And it worked out. I mean, vehicle got out. Yeah, I can. I can.
Yep.
Oh, man.
The mustache from my recovery kit. Oh, wow. Okay.
Man, you're kind of taking away from the feature here. So obviously, first things first, depending on the type, everything needs to be essentially aimed at your specific vehicle, right? So if you're driving a Subaru, you don't need the same recovery kit you'd need in a Tundra.
Right.
Just size-wise. If I was a complete noob and I was going to go out and buy stuff, I think I would probably, and I'm not you listen, you go get trained by anyone you want. You don't have to come to me. I'd love if you'd come to me for it. The reality is training is by far the best dollar for dollar value you'll ever spend money on, because we've been there, we've done it, we've fought the battles, we've learned from mistakes, we've seen the screw ups, we've seen the investment. Once you come and you get some training, we'll talk about it then.
Yeah.
But if you can run soft shackles, 2 soft shackles, 20-foot static straps, so non-stretchy, those 2 items, hard shackles or soft shackles, depending on what your vehicle can use, maybe one of each, because you never know what the vehicle you're going to have help from. But effectively, if you have those 3 items, 2 shackles and a strap, you're going to at least be able to be recovered by somebody else.
Yeah.
Without having to worry about the quality of their gear.
Yeah.
Then if you want to start adding things in like a winch and some other stuff, I'm telling you guys, the best thing you can buy is somebody else's time that's been there and done that. You want to size a winch about 1.5 times your gross vehicle weight rating. A lot of people throw a 12,000 pound winch on a 2-door JK and thumbs up it. But the issue with that is if you look at depending on how you are in industry, right? If you're looking at the if you want to stay within your working load limit, if you want to stay within your minimum braking strength stuff, that 12,000 pound winch is going to exceed most everything else you're going to buy for that vehicle. So you're buying by technicality. Yeah, I'm up here. Do you want up here? No. I don't blame you.
No.
Yeah, so you're going to be like, you've got a 12,000 pound winch, but now I have to buy like a 3-inch 2-ply static strap to act as a tree saver, because it's the only thing that can technically buy like some of our, there's really no off-road industry certification, but we refer a lot to the lifting and rigging industry, right? So when you look at their certification, a 12,000 pound strap, 12,000 pound winch has to have a strap that breaks at something like 60,000 pounds, which is big numbers.
Big numbers, yeah.
So a lot of times people are oversizing their winches and undersizing the other part of the kit. I try to run it like it's super close to the vehicle, like 1.5 times the vehicle weight. And because the other thing is, a lot of times we as overlanders go out and we totally exceed the suggested gross vehicle weight rating of the vehicle. You can't always go by that either. Yeah. So my poor Taco's overweight. She's fat.
All right, Joey, you're going to have to save your questions for class in 2 weeks at Rendezvous.
You got to stop saying that. You're going to give me a panic attack.
2 weeks, man. I can't believe it's already here. I'm so ready. I can't wait to see everybody and all that stuff. So let's talk about the what is new this year at Rendezvous, something that we haven't seen before.
So you got 2 things that are new. One, his name's Raul. Raul.
Nice.
He's living in Mexico City right now. He's on a military training in Utah. He's from Costa Rica. Dude has a background of Land Rover and Toyota stuff, 2 miles long. I'd have to go back to his bio, but he's trained in I don't know how many different countries. I should know that off the top of my head. I don't fall for peer pressure very easy, by the way, Joey. It takes a lot. So
the comments are just flying here because, he gets a lot of crap about how heavy his FJ is, and here's one from my wife.
To answer your question, there is a lot of weight up top. If you can essentially, so here's a good story. Camel Trophy guys were telling this. If you guys don't know what the Camel Trophy is, Google it, watch the YouTube videos. Again, the guys that brought me up in the industry are guys that competed and then later organized, but they were
okay.
I have to go ask Mama for more blueberries, okay?
I just Googled it and I'm getting some. Yeah.
Good, man. So those guys were telling one of the stories that sticks out in my head. I don't drink either. I don't. So they're driving uphill. All the other vehicles have been through. They're bringing these Land Rover 130s through. It's a Defender 130. It's like a 5-door, super long body, and they had all the tools in the back. One of the mechanics forgot to latch his toolbox. So they're going around this kind of tight right-hand turn uphill. Toolbox comes open, vehicle falls over, just from that weight change. So to make this make sense to Joey, if you're going to have weight up top, make it something stationary. Don't make it something like fuel or water or anything that can slosh. Trust me, man. He's a handful. He's amazing, but she can be a handful. She's 2 going on 20. But yes, so if you're going to have something heavy up top, something you can control, it's not going to slosh around. It's not a live load. Make those live loads go down as low as possible in the vehicle.
Yeah, Joey. Lower your live load, Joey. Anyway, all right. So back to what's new. There was 2 things. Raul's
coming up.
Yeah.
He's totally looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting someone from his kind of background into the Ozarks to see the terrain and see what's available. The other side is the driving course, and I'm going to shout out to River Ranch Resort. They've kind of sponsored this driving course for this year.
Nice.
We came out and we built it last week. Oh my gosh, time has just gone by like crazy. So we built it last week. Ends up, it's kind of short. We pre-ran it with Randy and Rick and the NSO guys, but time-wise, it's always a struggle because we've got 2 instructors. So we're going to be a little pinched on time if it's super popular, and I think it's going to be. So it's about 12 minutes. Because we're working with a kind of a small area, the obstacles are kind of packed in pretty tight. I hope they look like they do when I left, right? Weather's going to change some things. We packed everything really nice. It's right on. Dewey at Mulberry Mountain was totally on board. I made a really good, got a boo-boo. So Joey's just trying to get.
They're going back and forth.
Yeah,
trying to distract us.
We've got five decent obstacles that we can kind of touch on and point out. They're very what I'd call Ozark specific, just because hey, we're in the Ozarks. Couple of maybe one photo I threw up on the Oz 4x4 Instagram. Maybe one just of some mud. If it rains a lot, 2 of these things are going to change dramatically. So I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to look like. Hopefully we do get some moisture because we are a bit dry right now. The other stuff is really just focused on a great illustrative way to learn kind of the limits of your vehicle from a cross axle standpoint. We're going to talk about brake control. We call it left foot braking. Other people in the industry call it trail braking. Some people call it brake throttle modulation. Just depends on where you're from, I guess.
AKA driving with both feet.
Driving with both feet. Exactly.
I mean, that's what I call it.
Yeah. Drive with both feet. But yeah, so essentially the way we're going to format that right now is Raul or I are going to basically meet you at the start. We're going to stand right by your driver window throughout the course, talk about the different points we want to point out, and then answer any questions you guys have. My hope is that the feedback here is super positive for both Randy and Mulberry Mountain, because I'd love to be able to expand it a little further. This is one of those things where it's the first year, right? And I've ran these courses before, but it's our first year with Mulberry Mountain, allowing this to happen. It's the first year that it's actually happening on site. So there might be a hiccup or 2, but I think it will go very well. The big thing, go on.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the big thing is, if you remember the venue, Mulberry Mountain's this big, beautiful, open mountaintop. You've got to go across the highway to their other property to get to the driving course.
That's what I was going to ask you, is if it was right there in the field or if it's across the street. So you you still access it kind of like the same way we went to the bonfire. You go north a little bit and then cut back.
If you went to the bonfire this past June, it's going to be in a very similar location to that.
Gotcha.
And once you sign up, Randy's going to send out specifics. You're going to come in one way and exit another way, and hopefully we can kind of do a little route finding on your own. We'll have it well marked. But there is going to be a little bit of you're going to come in, turn right, and then you're going to go, should I go any farther? And the answer is yes. You should just go a little bit farther.
Yeah. All right.
We'll flag it very well.
Right on. So you register, you just go up to the Natural State Overland booth and register, or how do people
Randy's register? There's a post on the NSO right now that's kind of highlighting how to do that. I do not know if Randy sent it in an email, but there is a form that you have to fill out. Yeah, unfortunately, nobody.
Unfortunately, attendance was low this year. Guilty as charged. Sorry, Randy. Sorry, guys.
I went. It was nice. We got buzzed by a helicopter. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I heard that was pretty cool. Yeah.
It was.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Randy had we're talking about registering. You had a post.
Yeah, there's a post on NSO with a form, and if Randy's listening right now, maybe he can comment. Have you sent that out in email form to the registered guests yet? And if you haven't, you should. No comment. Silence. That's all right.
Maybe he's typing.
Maybe.
I'll put it up here in a minute. See if he. All right. So let's see classes. So you're going to be doing not only the course, but are you teaching any classes?
Yes.
Yes.
So Thursday and Friday are kind of the hot days for classes. So Raul and I, we've got one class together for Overlanding 101 on Thursday, and from there on, everything's split. The schedule should be out. If it's not, I will make it out. We're doing everything from non-winch recovery, winch recovery, traction boards, battery welding, water crossings. Raul's got about an hour to talk about what it's like if you want to come travel in Central America. It's got some really good stories on that one. More winching. And then we're going to have kind of a finale on Friday afternoon into early evening. Driving course is going to be shut down early on that. So driving course runs 4 hours on Thursday, 3 hours on Friday, and then we come back. And I have this harebrained idea on what I'm going to do for the demo.
Here we go.
It hasn't happened. I told Randy I'd do it this past weekend, but it didn't happen because I had to have the trailer for metal because we have some roof damage from one of those storms a couple of months ago. So we're putting a metal roof. But I unloaded it this week. So
it could happen. There's still time.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time. It's on my to-do list that is now this long. But it may just happen in real time. I don't think he wants that to happen in real time, but it may happen in real time.
So Randy says no email. He's going to try to get that done. All right. So trail runs, anything other than the course? You guys doing any trail runs? You camping at Mulberry Mountain or?
Yeah, we'll be at Mulberry Mountain. We'll have a booth there. One of the guys that helps me out quite a bit, I call him my Texas market coordinator. He hasn't lived up to his job title yet. But also it's on a volunteer basis a lot of the time. So we'll see. Right?
You get what you pay for?
I get way more than what I pay for, I promise you.
Yeah.
Cole is phenomenal. So Cole's going to be in the booth most of the weekend. I'll be in the booth when I can. We're doing three things that we hadn't done before. We were going to run a vendor kind of professional development day on that Wednesday. Didn't have enough signups to kind of make the time because I'm a business. Anytime I'm running people, I have my carrying costs. So yeah, my pay scale's totally lacking. Right. Anyway, so Wednesday we're going to go pre-run some stuff for Saturday. So Saturday I have Raul's a Bronco off-rodeo trainer. The guys I run with actually set up the Bronco off, and I'm just gonna brag about him. Jim West trained all of the Bronco off-rodeo trainers that have since continued that. That group of guys that kind of set that up is people that I run commonly with. So Raul's coming. It's not Bronco affiliated at all. We've got 9 of the 10 spots already filled. It's a little extra cost over Rendezvous simply because, again, so Ozark 4x4 is permitted, insured. We have a permit 365 days a year. We can run. Tomorrow I could have a private client go, hey, I want to run this. And we've got a set limit of days we can run. But I can go run something tomorrow or I could, whenever. Permit is about 500-ish miles of essentially roads off the MVUM and county roads. It's a substantial undertaking. I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. It's like 27 pages of paperwork that I have to do to get it. Multiple medical certifications, I've got to talk to all the different districts. It's a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
We're going to get Raul out. We're going to run a Bronco trip. It's kind of one of those things. It's not designed to be a training trip. It's more designed to be hey, let's get you guys out and see the sights and get to go in 4-wheel drive low for a little while. Whatever happens. The only thing we can control is the time we leave, right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. That's a good point.
Yeah.
The only thing we control is, Joey, we've talked about this before. It seems like I wait till the last minute. I know when I'm leaving the next morning, but whether or not I'm up half the night or whether I go to bed at a decent hour, just kind of depends on,
We've
anyway.
We've had a couple of I'm the only outfitter for sure. Some of the other companies, to answer, if you didn't read Rick's comment there, he's like, I'm the only one that is legally permitted guided trail service in the Ozark National Forest. So people can go out and they can get their one-time trips, which is a special use permit. But I'm a outfitter. I'm insured as an outfitter. I can run, like I said, tomorrow I've got 500 plus miles from Richland Creek down to Russellville, all the way over to Interstate 49, all 3 districts.
So is that just the Ozarks, or do you run the Ouachitas as well?
I don't do anything in the Ouachitas right now, mostly because proximity, right?
Yeah,
and
because you're in Missouri, and it's just easier to be in the Ozarks. Yeah.
I'm based out of Knoll, Missouri, which is right there on the corner. I'm 30 minutes from Bentonville. Kind of cut my teeth right in the Ozarks. That said, the Bronco training's a big thing. Now that my brain is caught up with our conversation, I was going to tell you, there's been like 2 a.m. mornings where we're finally welding frame rails back together on a Land Rover. And guess what time we're leaving? 8. Right? So we're hard and fast at 8. It doesn't matter.
Burning the midnight oil. Yes, sir.
So the other thing we're trying, and this is a new one, we're doing vehicle supported bike tours. And this is kind of a different one. Bike packing is a hobby that I've never really partaken in as a hobby, right? Like I've gone and done it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I lugging all this stuff around? I have a truck. Yeah. And so the concept is that, with the Oz Taco, I can run up to a group of 12 and we can run, it's like breakfast and dinner provided by the guides. We run a separate bike guide that does the trail stuff on these same roads that we're permitted on. So nothing crazy single track wise, not made it, it'd be kind of painful to ride on a mountain bike. The e-bikes have been a pretty big turner right now. Everybody's wanting to do it with e-bikes.
I could get into an e-bike. I'm not quite where I need to be, shape wise, physically wise, but I don't know. My wife and I have talked about an e-bike. Joey has built an overlanding bike, so I'm sure he'd be all about this bike packing that you're talking about.
Yeah, we've got a bike ride on Saturday of the Rendezvous. It's going to be a nice, pretty solid loop. 50 something miles is what we're looking at. There's a kind of a questionable road. It was closed when my permit was renewed. And so because there's tons of politics in there, essentially to add that, I've got to go through and reapply. Right?
Oh, okay.
And so whether or not that happens before 2 weeks from now, I don't know. So that route may change a little bit. Yeah. 2 weeks from today. But it may or may not change. And again, I can't, I have operating costs. So there's some fees associated with that because it's not necessarily part of Rendezvous. But Josh Frank, it's a guy that we met in the Overland Guild days, been around a long time. I built some stuff for his Nissan Frontier back in the 15, 16 year range and kind of traded some bike work. And so that was a good connection for us, and he's on board 100%. He's going around telling everyone he's like, yeah, come on this bike ride. You got 4x4 Sherpas.
Nice.
Yeah.
4x4 Sherpas.
It's a good tagline. I like it.
Yep. That's funny. So, okay. That's good stuff. Is there anything else? It looks like we're getting close to our time limit here. We try to stick to. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that's on your list of things you'd like to?
Well, you wanted to talk about the Oz Taco. That was something we pre-gamed.
There you go.
So if we have the time, I
told
you we need like 3 hours.
But well, we won't take quite 3 hours, but that's all right. Let's hear it. What is it?
So the Oz Tacos 03 4-door taco, right? And I can't tell you, audience, how many hours I've spent in other people's vehicles.
Yeah.
Where I have to fly in out of a checkable bag and live for 8 days, 10 days, and then fly home. And so I've kind of seen how everything Joey can wait. I've seen how everything works. And so I kind of have nitpicked, moved things around. But the Oz Taco 03 4-door, 5-foot bed rack. I've got 4 max tracks, 2 sand ladders. I just recently put an awning on there because of the bike trips mostly. I'd always ran without an awning. I just enjoy the sun on my head, I guess. Pull pow. I've got 10 gallons of gas positioned in a way that I can use a shaker siphon and just fill it from its stationary location in the bed. Opposite side, 10 gallons of water. CO2 tank over compressor, because when you're running a big group, I just make sure that CO2 tank's full before I leave. And then an hour and a half air up for 8 vehicles turns into a 20-minute air up. It's the way to go for large groups like that. I recently built a set of drawers out of the back, but essentially I've got an ARB Elements fridge, the recovery gear, some other little stuff, but I can feed out of that truck for a 3-night trip. So 4-day, 3-night, I can feed 12 people. And I have all the spares, spare alternator starter, CV axle, tools, welding kit. I mean, that truck is like, it's not flashy. I built the sliders. I built the rear bumper. I built the bed rack. The bed rack is not yet, but it's designed to be tied into the frame. So when I get into some of these very off-camber, high-angle recoveries, I can hook to that instead of having to go B-pillar to B-pillar. It's very well thought out, but it's not super flashy. So, a lot of people look at it and just turn their head, but they have no idea the amount of time that went into, like, it's KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
And I think
right.
One of the big things we in the industry do is, like, we love Gucci stuff. We love the next best thing. And I've been there, but
guilty.
Rick will tell you, this is the first fridge I've owned since he's known me. And he's known me since like 2011, right?
Yeah.
And I've never had a fridge until this year. And it's just because I had it set up where I could run it out of coolers, but you have a lot of weight and waste and ice. So now I set it up out of a fridge.
Yeah.
But she's fat.
Yeah.
The taco is fat. She's heavy. Custom airbag setup. They don't make good airbag kits for first gen tacos. So I've got a Old Man Emu heavy duty leaf pack with an extra heavy duty leaf in there.
Okay.
And so when she doesn't have any kit in it, and it's just like the boxes in the fridge and some extra fuel, she rides super nice. But then when you start throwing that extra weight in there, right? Food for 12 people is still substantial.
It adds up.
I've got Dutch ovens, I've got stoves, I've got, a spare jet boil, all kinds of stuff. It adds up a lot. So I throw about 10 pounds and she sits level and she still rides like a dream.
Nice.
I fought that for a while. One of the guys I work with a lot, I'm going to have him out on a private client trip in October. His name's Charles Hendrickson. If you guys remember Pinks from the Discovery Channel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
he
I
was on
do.
Pinks for a long time. He
No
doesn't
kidding.
look the same now as he did then. He definitely
Okay.
showed out for the show. But he used to
Dude,
have a
I haven't watched Pinks in forever.
well.
That's
Now you have a
funny.
YouTube rabbit hole to go down.
Yep. Yep,
But
for
he
sure.
did a bunch of trophy truck stuff,
Okay.
like the Mexican 1000, stuff like that. And I was talking to him about some of the issues I was running into when I was kind of feeling my way through the suspension. And so I actually used a piece from a round baler, believe it or not,
Piece
as a,
of brown baler.
yeah, like a round baler ag equipment,
Uh-huh.
because I needed some really super thin, very, very tough bushing material. And the round
Right.
baler belts are like, I mean, yeah, they're insanely tough.
Nice.
So that's kind of it's running on my airbag system, and it's been that way for over a year now.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's still the same exact 2 pieces of baler belt I cut. But yeah, nothing about it's flashy, man, but it works. It's a tool. That's the
Yeah.
other thing. A lot of people are, I don't like pinstripes. I don't like water because it gets, it's a tool. These are tools for me to demonstrate to you how to better use your vehicle, how to better drive.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't like pinstripes either, but it's part of it.
It
When
is
you get the
part of
first
it.
7 or 8 or 1,200, whatever, then it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That
anyway.
first one always hurts.
Yeah.
And the rest of them is just music.
Yeah.
Not very
That's
good
right.
music sometimes.
No,
It's just music.
sometimes it makes your ears twitch. It's like,
Yeah, I gave
all
up.
right. So I got time for one more question. I'm going to give Joey one more question here.
Okay.
I've been saving this one. This one's really important.
Okay.
Really important. There we go.
Oh.
I mean,
Okay.
it's all about the food at camp, right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Right. So again, Rick knows me, right? And Dudley
Yeah.
knows me, and Randy knows me. And for years, I would come to camp, and I was all about the drive part of this, right? So like the driving, the off-roading, the driving portion of this was kind of where my passion was. So I'd come to camp and I'd pop open like a package of tuna and sprinkle some crackers in it, and that'd be dinner. And then they'd feel guilty, and I knew they'd feel guilty, so they'd give me food. I knew like I don't know how many oatmeal cream pies Dudley has given me over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I've matured, my certification lapsed several years ago, Rick. As I've matured in my years in the industry, I think my current favorite meal is one I do on my tours is a beef pot pie.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Beef
Beef
pot
pot
pie.
pie?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I'm not like, we're not hiking. Like we're not backpacking. We're not canoeing here. So if you come on one of my tours, you get a salad, you get a protein, and you get dessert. Like we're full service.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. But you got to remember, if you drink yourself into a stupor at camp, we still roll out at 8.
Yep. We're still leaving at 8.
We still leave at 8.
I get that. Dude, it's been so fun talking to you and learning all about, Jason and Ozark 4x4. And I really appreciate you coming on here and talking to us and talking about what you guys got going on at Rendezvous coming up here in 2 weeks from today. There I go.
Yeah.
I can't not. Hey,
Yeah.
and so for all y'all, I'm going to break my rule here. I'm going to talk about the weather because I'm really excited.
Oh,
Because
no,
I did this
we
last
talked
year.
about this.
I did this exact same thing last year. I just remembered. Okay, I'm not going to talk about it. Y'all go look at your own forecast.
Yeah.
There you go. Or
Good
don't.
call.
Whatever. But bring pants. Make sure you bring pants because Arla's not. My wife isn't coming this year, so she can't bring us pants. If y'all don't, have you heard that story?
No, I haven't.
So last year at Rendezvous, the weather forecast, whenever I looked at it 2 weeks out, it wasn't supposed to be that bad. So in my mind, the next 2 weeks, I'm preparing for decent weather. And you know how it turned out last year. It was kind of cool.
It was
And
very chilly on in the morning.
Somebody didn't showed up without any pants on Thursday and had to call his wife on Friday and beg for her to bring some pants. So that's how that went. And she did. Yeah. Jason is good people. Congrats on Oz 4x4 and a raincoat and shorts and a jacket.
Pack
Okay,
for
Randy, I'm just throw in the pair of pants. They don't take up much room. Always prep for 3 seasons at Rito. Yeah, that's good advice. All right. So, real quick, tell us how people can find you on all the webs.
Well, like I said earlier, I'm not very good at telling my story.
Yeah.
But if I do, it's either on the Facebook Ozark 4x4,
Okay.
Oz4x4.com, or our Instagram is Oz4x4 Tours. So those are the 3 main things.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Jason, thank you very much.
To,
yeah, that's all.
It's hard. It's my kryptonite.
Yeah. Oh, it's fine. You're doing a fine job. Anyway. All right. We're going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks for coming on here watching. Thank you, Jason, again for coming on here. Had a great time and look forward to seeing everybody at Rendezvous. And I'm probably going to butcher this. I'm going to try to say it the way Joey says. Have a great week. Watch out for number 1, but don't step in number 2.